On Wednesday, November 19th, Ambassador Pierre Vimont welcomed Antonio Vitorino of Portugal to speak as the only non-French member in the series of lectures on Europe. Among his many accomplishments, Vitorino served 6 years as European Commissioner for Justice and Home Affairs and was one of 2 commissioners to serve on the convention that drew up the draft of the European Constitution. Over 50 people, including journalists and members of the public and private sector, attended the lecture, which focused on the evolution of Europe-US relations following the election of the new American president.
I think I should start by praising the French presidency, of course. This has been a very carefully, well-planned presidency. President Sarkozy, in the very outset, fixed 3 targets for the French presidency. The first one was to get ready for the entry into force of the Treaty of Lisbon on the 1st of January 2009. The second target of the French presidency was to give priority to the development of a more enhanced cooperation in the area of defense. The third target of the French presidency was to have an ambitious package on energy security. When we arrive to this point, you will say, okay, so the plans were out because of the Irish and the Lisbon Treaty. So what is the reason for the French presidency to be so successful? Well, very simply, as usual in European affairs, the success comes from what has not been planned.
Vitorino then listed the 2 main crises the French presidency had to face. First, the Russian and Georgian conflict, and second, the international financial crisis. Vitorino recognized how well the French presidency managed these 2 crises. Later, Vitorino talked about Europe-US relations under the new administration.
Of course that some people speak about big projects like a new transatlantic community, and there are enormous amount of ideas floating around. Well, I would advise to be more modest in defining our targets, especially in the short run.
Vitorino then suggests to focus on 3 topics, the first being security and foreign policy.
It is quite clear that the priority for the new American administration will be Afghanistan.
Vitorino called Afghanistan a case study for Europeans who can find there all of the prerequisites for their own doctrine, a UN resolution, a NATO mission, and the principle of self-defense.
Nevertheless, one has to recognize that the mission in Afghanistan is critical. And there are several severe challenges in front of us to succeed in Afghanistan. In parallel, it will be extremely helpful if we could have an agreement, a transatlantic agreement, about what success means in Afghanistan. Of course, Al-Qaeda is the target.
The second topic Vitorino thinks the US and Europe should focus on is the international financial crisis. Vitorino said he was glad to see such a high level of cooperation between a wide number of countries during the recent G20 summit in Washington, but warned about the biggest risk.
And we cannot be naive, ignoring that this kind of exceptional measures might reinforce some drive towards protectionism.
The last topic requiring close transatlantic cooperation is the fight against terrorism.
I believe that both Europeans and Americans share this common objectives in the fight against terrorism.
Following his speech, Vitorino took questions from the audience, an opportunity not even the ambassador could pass up on.
Could I ask a question?
Do you see any way of being able altogether to coordinate the way we're going to try to help our industries and the way we're going to get out of this economic recession?
Well, Pierre,